When I sit down to design an agenda, my goal is to be effective. I want to make sure that we're getting the most out of the 1 to 2 hours we're using, or especially if I'm designing for a workshop and there's going to be consecutive days spent where people are taking precious time away from desk work, other meetings, and priorities to come together. We want to make sure that time is well spent. And in order to do that, I take 3 major steps. The concepts in themselves are pretty simplistic, but the practice, the application of each step is a little bit more complicated, and it does take time. So let's sit down together to learn how to design an effective agenda for either a series of ongoing meetings or a staff meeting, or even designing a workshop when you have a collective aim and everyone needs to participate. The very first thing I do when I sit down to write an agenda is set clear objectives. Again, the idea is simplistic, but I want you to walk with me to understand how this actually cascades down from the largest perspective all the way down to the one meeting that you're getting ready to facilitate. When I say setting clear objectives, I am not just talking about identifying the topics or the subjects that you need to go over with your team in a meeting. If you are to be an effective leader, you need to make sure that everything you're doing with your team is in alignment and in service to the bigger vision. As an effective leader, you are the vision holder, and we need our leaders to be fearless in that. We need our leaders to steer us to true north, to keep us within the parameters of which we should be operating, and making sure that all of the effort and creative energy that people are putting into their jobs is going to account for something. You as the leader, as an effective leader, should take the time to step away from the day-to-day, put a little distance between yourself and the work so that you can become objective. What I'm inviting you to do is something that I practice myself, and that is to reorient yourself with the overall goal, vision, or project. Throughout this conversation, I'm going to kind of break it up in terms of what I define to be the overall goal, vision, or project. In my work as a facilitator, a coach, and a strategist, I do collective impacts, I do social work, I do community organizing, and I work in the context of education. And normally we find ourselves in 3 different areas that require just a little bit of nuance to the principles that I'm offering. Another thing is that for the technical side of the application that we'll be talking through today, you can study for yourself and find a deeper understanding by checking out, purchasing the book called Facilitator's Guide to Participatory Decision Making. I will link it in the comments and do my best to connect to the ideas that come directly from that book so you know where to go and see for yourself. When I'm speaking about reorienting yourself as a leader to the overall goal, vision, or project, what I mean is that a goal may be something where an organization finds themselves in an evolution or a transition, or really it's just time to establish something new. It's a short-term goal, and maybe you want to build a committee or a small group of people that are going to manage the design and implementation of that short-term goal. So I actually like the example that's given in the book, so I'll just use that to stay clear. The example is of an organization that has grown, it has multiple sites, and they realize that a one person contracted to do HR work is no longer going to suffice. So we need to have an HR team, right? So that is an overall goal. We need to design and establish and implement an HR team for the organization. An overall vision is something that I refer to as what an effective leader and someone who's in positional authority would actually hold for a nonprofit or a small organization. This person is trying to move a team in the direction of the future that they see, the future that they're trying to create. It doesn't yet exist. There's some sort of systemic change that everyone is after, and so there is a vision for the nonprofit. An overall project is something that might be more of an initiative. It's something where community partners are coming together. They're all written into a proposal that has secured funding, and now it's time for us to move a project along, again, for a future that we hope to exist in one day. It might be a multi-year project, and so the goal is to move collectively from point A to point B and implementing and designing something that does not yet exist. Okay, so as an effective leader, if you are holding an initiative or collective impact, if you are holding building a nonprofit and the team members that are making that work possible, or if you are implementing just a short-term overall goal, you need to reorient with the vision of that thing. You need to make sure that you understand what it looks like, what it feels like. You want to be the one who can communicate that to the team as much as required. Not only that, it helps you make effective decisions. I love the way Dr. Miles Monroe says that in leadership, the most difficult thing that a leader has to do is not make a decision, but know what decision to make. What is the right decision to make? The second most difficult thing is navigating the alternatives. It is normal and a part of the process that really good ideas will come up. It is so easy to drift a little to the left or a little to the right, but as the leader, you have to have an intimate knowledge of the vision. The more intimate that you have it, the better that you see it, the more that you can describe what it looks and feels like, the more effective you're going to be in the moment when you have to make those critical decisions, or when the counterfeits show up, you're going to do a better job of recognizing them and keeping your team on course. The best way to reorient with your overall goal, vision, or project is to ask yourself questions like, what makes this important? If I could wave a magic wand and get what I really want, what would that be? Or if money and time were no object, what am I really trying to do? What do I fundamentally want to accomplish? So depending on where you're at in your journey, this could be the first time you're answering these questions, and that's okay. Or you're reorienting yourself with the answers to these questions. The really great thing about doing this ever so often, and I'll talk about when's the appropriate time to do this in a little bit, is that as you move, especially in visions and in projects that are multi-year, the more you do, the more you learn. Sometimes when we're casting a vision for the future, we can only speak to what we understand about it. But the more that we do, the more that we learn, the more that we can refine the descriptors of that vision to help keep everybody accountable and engaged and energized to our end goal. So you want to continue to come back to this to make sure that it still resonates. This is a form of continuous improvement, and it's what's going to help make you an effective leader. So after you have wrestled with the heart of your vision, now it's time to pull out and be able to identify with clarity and common language what the focus areas are, or the contributing components that will help fulfill that vision. So if I am an effective leader over a project or a proposed aim that is a multi-year project with multiple partners, I probably already know what my focus areas are because they're outlined in the proposal. Except it's very easy to make the mistake or the assumption that everyone else on the team, all the other partners that I'm relying on and who have been written into the grant, also are very familiar with the proposal. They understand what's being articulated and they understand what's expected of them. Be careful not to make this mistake. It is an unrealistic expectation. As the leader, as the vision holder, you are the one who's responsible with having that intimate knowledge of the proposal. And although the proposal serves its purpose, it secures the funding, it puts you in partnership with a funder, it is not conducive for creating a culture of belonging. It is not true north. You actually need to go through all of that technical jargon, and you need to weed out what are the true catalytic contributing factors to the vision that you hold for where this proposal should ultimately end up. In the proposal, you likely have a mixture of what's important to you and what's important to the funders. And again, it's probably all jumbled with like elaborate and elongated text that really helps to explain what it is you're trying to achieve in an engaging and convincing way. So what you want to do is actually pull out those focus areas in really simplistic, common language ways. Seriously, just bullet point them. So if you need to do school-based level TA, if you need to build communities of practice, if you need to do maybe a resource hub, or you need to create state convenings, whatever the contributing components are, call those out, make sure they're clear and that you can articulate them alongside with the heart of your vision. If you are, holding the overall vision for a nonprofit, is the same idea. What are the functions and or departments, i.e. the contributing focus areas that you are focusing on, working on, hiring within to help support the fulfillment of that overall vision. And then if you are supporting an overall goal and it is a short-term project, then what are the contributing factors, the things that need to be completed to make this not effective, but make this successful? What's going to help you achieve your overall goal? Once the focus areas have been called out, then it's time for you to actually call out an overall goal for each focus area. And you're going to do that by asking yourself 1 to 2 questions. The first question every leader in whatever position you're in needs to ask themselves: what is the final result that you want in order to be completely done with that focus area? Okay, so if you are directing an overall goal, like the example of developing and implementing an HR team, then it's probably going to be a little bit easier, right? Maybe the focus areas for you, like the book calls out, are staffing, budget, and departmental functions. And so it's easy for you to think about, like, what do I need to do to be completely done with this focus area and moving on to something else? But if you are working on an overall vision and you're trying to make sure that things you're doing are congruent, in alignment, you're making progress in the organization itself, if you are leading a project or proposal that's a multi-year thing and you want to make sure you're being effective, then you are going to need to push yourself to answer the question: what do I need to do to be completely done with this? I want to encourage you, if it feels hard, that's normal. You're speaking to a future that you can't fully see. And you might not fully understand what it looks like to be done, but you should know, if you're after some sort of systemic change or a better future, the biggest form of success is to work yourself out of a job. So what does that look like? After you've been able to determine that best to your ability, then for the sake of progress, you're going to want to backwards engineer a little bit and think about, what would I like to accomplish in the next 6 to 12 months that would make me as a leader feel like we're making great progress? Okay, so you need to step it down a little bit, but it's still highly important that you continue to think about, what does it look like for me to be completely done with this focus area? And that's it. And I say that's it, like that's it. But I told you, the idea is simplistic: set clear objectives, but the application and practice is a little bit more involved. So you're going to tear down from your overall vision to the focus areas or contributing factors to an overall goal for each focus area. Okay, and once you have that clarity and objective, now it's time to take each overall goal that we know is aligned to the direction and the overall vision that we're trying to achieve, and we design for success. That's step 2.